join your host, Thomas Clark, to find out about his thoughts and opinions on low budget and zero budget filmmaking. Even though recorded back in October last year, the adventure of the podcast begins now. With several amazing guests lined up and some strong opinions voiced, if you love film, making film, or anything to do with film, this is the podcast for you. So lend me your ears for an hour as we dive in to the Zero Budget Filmmakers Podcast. Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the Zero Budget Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Thomas Clark, writer, director, producer, soundman, AC, AD, and actor. Christ, that list needs to be shorter. And hopefully I'll be your host for a good few episodes on this podcast. Projects I've worked on and credits include my very first venture into filmmaking, A New Bloom, Cassie, Deep Breath, and Happier, my latest short film, which won 2 awards thanks to Regal Cinema. All of these films can be found on YouTube, where they're slowly accumulating views and slowly probably dying, as they say. I wanted to start this podcast to do 2 things. Mainly to promote and raise awareness to the lower end of independent filmmaking and to use it to track my process as a filmmaker and track my progress from where I am now to where I hopefully want to be doing this full time. In each episode, I want to talk to you about different topics with a variety of guests, all about filmmaking, from getting that first idea to financing and budgeting and all the way through to end piece, I guess. I'm going to try make it a weekly podcast with every 4th episode talking about the latest cinema releases, my thoughts, their thoughts and opinions on the film and what to look forward to next month. Without further ado, I should probably get into the first episode. I want to use this first episode to talk about what and where I think independent filmmaking is and elaborate on what to look forward to in future episodes. Now, this would be much easier if someone was asking me the questions instead of me just rambling on somewhat aimlessly. So, what do I think independent filmmaking is? I think indie filmmaking is far too vast now to put a good explanation on it, because you can class films such as Argyle, Blair Witch, and A New Bloom all as independent films, even though the budgets and the manpower behind them are so vastly different. I don't think indie filmmaking is the same as it used to be. It's not like the days where you got a group of friends together and went off running and gunning a short film with no concept or idea behind it. It's like now we need a proper name for that kind of filmmaking, like proper raw dog filmmaking is the term that's trending at the moment. No money, minimal or basic kit, and a bunch of people that just want to make a film, really. Because I don't think that there's enough of this anymore. Everyone wants to be paid for their work, so most turn down unpaid projects to work on so-called zero-budget indie films, even though they could have a budget of 50 or 100k to spend. But don't get me wrong, if there's a paid opportunity there for you, take it, because I most likely would as well. But just look at the creative value that you can provide to it and the result that you're going to get out of the project, because don't do a project just for the money and just because you're getting paid. Do a project because you know you're going to get the most out of it for yourself. And this is something I want to focus on throughout this podcast, trying to help new filmmakers realise that 50k or 100k isn't zero budget, and that a film made from small amounts of what you save off your wage to cover everyone's expenses and feed them is zero budget. Like stuff that you can just save from your wage and make a film out of isn't the same as like people finding funding and securing funding for films such as I said, Argyle and Blair Witch. Now, it isn't me saying that people that work on these projects can afford to live off these films and do it full time, because I'm sure everyone that works on them also has a full or part time job that they have to do to pay the bills. Like myself, I'm a full time bus driver, and the pennies that I don't spend on bills and expenses, I try my best to save and make sure I have a small amount of budget to make films with. But as we all know, that's easier said than done in the current climate. So back to new filmmakers, I want to help them with this podcast find audiences for their films and not let them sit on YouTube collecting dust, because even after me making 7 short films, all of them that I have made are now just kind of sat on YouTube slowly collecting dust. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that financing and finding an audience for a film is no easy task, and it takes a lot of hard work to find one of these, let alone both of them. But something I've come across recently is the 48-hour film project. In brief, it's a challenge where you have to make a 4 to 7 minute short film based on given criteria, all within 48 hours. So from nothing to full short film in just one weekend. Yeah, so it's a 4 to 7 minute short film based on given criteria, all made within one weekend. The thing I love about the competition is that everyone taking part has to do it voluntarily. So it's all about who you know and not what you can afford. This means that everyone from the latest TV director to Fred and George from down the road are all on the same playing field, and the project comes down to creativity and imagination rather than the months of prep and asking this person and that person for extra money to see the project through. The only trouble is they're far and few between in the UK at the moment. That I know of, I think we have 5 or 6 currently held in the UK, which are Brighton, where I'm based, Bristol, London, which I've taken part in once, East London, which is a new one that's coming. So I don't know what that's going to be, if it's just going to be people from East London or not. And then you've got to go all the way up north to Scotland, which are the Inverness and Glasgow ones. Those I haven't taken part in. But if you are local to one of these, I highly recommend taking part in them next year. I think all of them's been done now, other than, as I say, London, which is coming out, I hope, before this podcast comes out, so you could still sign up, but knowing my luck, it'll probably be after. Yeah, if you have the chance to, definitely take part in them, because once you've finished with one of the most stressful weekends of your life, you'll hopefully, I haven't failed it yet, but you'll hopefully have finished the short film all in that one weekend that's guaranteed to be screened at a local cinema and have a chance to win awards if you've submitted in on time and followed the rules. And then if you have done all that, you do have a clear route to larger festivals such as Filmapalooza, which is held by 48 yearly. Last year was at Lisbon. This year's going to be at Seattle. And then each year they choose a different location worldwide. And then if you're successful in that festival, you then also have the opportunity to be taken to Cannes. Now, that's every filmmaker's dream, to have the opportunity to go to Cannes. So it's a great festival that will give you, I say, an easy route, but it's not an easy. It's easier than you making a film at home and then trying to get into Cannes. So it is very helpful trying to get into those larger festivals. So yeah, the 48 project, they're perfect for everyone, no matter on how much experience you have or financing. Anyone can take part. There's a little subscription fee, not a subscription fee, but like an entry fee that you have to pay, and each one's different. I know out in America they're a little bit more expensive, averaging about $175, I think. and in the UK, I think you can get early entry for £95. I know it might be a bit for some of you out there. If you have that money aside or available to you, I recommend you do these so much. The only other projects like this that I can think of or that I've taken part in are the 666 Challenge, which is hosted by the Independent Horror Society in London, and the Regal Cinemas 48 Challenge, which was in Fordingbridge. Now, I don't know if every Regal is going to take on that, but Fordingbridge did their first one this year, which I submitted Happier for, and they kindly gave me the awards of Highly Commended Cinematography and Best Original Score. So yeah, there's definitely projects out there and challenges out there like this, but yeah, these are the only ones that I've participated in and know of. So if you've got one local to you, definitely go out and give it a try. The best thing I've taken away from each of these events was the opportunity to network with fellow local zero budget filmmakers, or maybe not even local, but like South Coast is where I've done most of these projects. And it's nice to just meet fellow zero budget filmmakers, which most of the participants are. Some of them are, don't get me wrong, higher end indie filmmakers. As I said, out in America, you could get the latest Stranger Things director having a weekend off and decide to do a 48 challenge. So you can meet anybody there, and you can find your next opportunity or present your next idea, and find that next crew member. And that's another reason why I've started this podcast, so that the guests that come on or you guys listening could find that next exciting talent, or find your next DP, producer, anyone in between, or as I say, find an audience for your next short film. So that's why I want this podcast to hopefully bring to you listening, the people that come on, as I say, find that next DP, producer, actor, you name it. However, I don't just want to chat with the latest and greatest directors to promote their new piece of cinema. I'm going to chat to everyone from, as I said, producers, actors, directors to runners, writers to editors, and everyone else who helps put a film together. I'm going to ask each of the guests that come on their thoughts, as I've just said, their thoughts on what and where independent filmmaking is, if they're in pre-post production, shooting, they're the latest project or taking a break. And I'll make sure that you get to know them as much as I do in that short space of time where we're in your ears. Our first couple of guests will be people I've worked with previously, just to settle me into being a good host. So next week we'll either have my partner Jessica Lee joining us, or Oliver Davies joining us. So we'll either have Jessica Lee, my partner, or Oliver Davies, who's my main cinematographer that I go to use. And one of those will either be on next week's episode, and I'm sure I'll do a little outro at the end of this, where I've decided who comes next, and we'll talk where and what independent filmmaking is and what they've got coming up as well. So yeah, that was episode 1. It was probably a struggle to listen to. I hope it wasn't too much. But thank you all for listening to the very first episode of the Zero Budget Filmmaking Podcast. I've been your host, Thomas Clark, and hopefully I'll be treating you to another episode next week where it won't just be my voice you're having to listen to. You'll actually get a guest to listen to as well. So yeah, see you all then. Thank you very much.